Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Let's Talk. I'm your host, Kelvin, and I'm just going to be letting this go in the background whilst we have a little chat. So I need to talk to you guys about YouTube, and the fact that it's making changes again, as everyone simultaneously facepalms. You can hear it miles away. I can hear it through time. YouTube has decided to make some changes regarding the Content ID system. And now everyone facepalms again! Oh god, what have they broken this time? Well, here's the thing. Before I can really go into what these changes are, I want to keep a non-biased, opinion about this and try to explain to you guys how I've reached the conclusion I've reached. And the conclusion I've reached is that this change, which I'll explain in a minute, is fair and understandable. And really, we've been living on borrowed time until this change occurred. Now, way back when, before 2011, YouTube didn't really have very many partners. Like, there were not many people who could actually monetize their videos for income. And this was actually bad for YouTube because it meant less revenue. There were less people uploading. Overall, it means they were making less money. And they wanted to change that, which is, fine. So they tried to expand how many people they could partner, but the problem was back then there wasn't really a content ID system. There was no real way for them to ID stuff that was offending content and have it taken down, at least automatically. So they only allowed very few people to become partners, people who they could trust. Generally they were sizable channels, and when I say sizable I mean like over 100,000 subscribers sizable. And that actually turned to be a huge problem, with, you can't really expand that without creating a whole mess of copyrights and a whole bunch of people getting on your ass and suing you. So YouTube decided to decentralize it. They allowed the creation of networks. These networks, most famously, some are known as Machinima, Polaris, TGN, at least among the video game circle. You probably have heard at least of one of those. They're a network. And what networks do is partner people. They allow YouTube people of smaller size to become partners. In return, though, the networks become responsible for, making sure that they don't break terms of service, that they don't upload copyrighted content. That was the agreement between YouTube and its networks. And so that was basically why they existed. Now, let's fast forward a bit. Not too long ago, 2011, yeah, I think was it 2011? Must have been, yeah. In 2011, they introduced the ability to monetize videos for everyone. So now everyone and their grandmother could go right ahead and monetize everything. And the only reason that they could do this was because they implemented a automatic scanning system that would scan everything that was uploaded and, flag it automatically. And a review system that meant that if you wanted to monetize a video, generally you would have to go through a review process just to make sure that you weren't, trying to monetize content you otherwise couldn't. And that kind of worked, actually. But the problem then came, what do you do with the networks? What about the networks? Well, obviously it would be a terrible PR move and completely destructive to YouTube to have just flat out shut them down, understandably. You just can't get away with simply shutting down all the networks. So YouTube just let them stay up and keep doing their thing. But then you ask, well, what were the networks doing for the partners? Because the networks do take a % of the income. So what were the networks doing? And the answer, hilariously, is that the networks were allowing users to bypass the review system. The networks were still theoretically responsible for the content uploaded. I say theoretically. And, so they were still kind of there for that reason. And that meant a lot of gaming channels would end up becoming partnered. In fact, it was often said that in order to be able to make money on YouTube, you had to be a partner if you were going to be, uploading gaming content, which to a degree was true. I'm going to tell you a bit of a personal story here. Back when I wasn't with the network, every damn last video I submitted for monetization was, in fact, just, it was, I had to wait 3 days while it was, in quotes, under review. And then I'd get a nice little email saying they needed more info, and I'd hand them a form, attach it to something, and fill out a couple of fields, you know, nothing too bad. Then, you know, send it back off, wait another 24 to 72 hours until they finally approved it. Now, I had to do this for every video. They didn't really consider saving, perhaps, the thing that I attached, so that way they could just, you know, check it against the other thing. No, and I'm actually being conservative when I say 72 hours. There have been reports of it taking as long as 2.5 weeks for the entire review process, assuming, you know, you respond on the same day. Like, it can happen. I know it can. I've had it happen for. I've had it hit me for 1.5 weeks, so I fully believe it can hit for 2.5. Because why not? It's friggin' YouTube. All right. So, to a point, that's where that came from. And you know, so with the whole review system, that's great. YouTube really didn't let that much copyrighted content through anymore, except for the networks. The problem with the networks is they were pretty much left to their own devices. And what did they do? They became harbors of scum. And I'm not talking about, like, gaming content breaking law. I mean just like people who would rip TV shows and rip music and upload it. And then they would use networks to avoid the review system so they could monetize it. This actually led to several lawsuits against YouTube and networks. The most infamous one in recent time was Fullscreen getting sued. And man, did they get they got served up on a silver platter in court. Like, they were cooked. Most of their defense was actually just trying to say that it's all YouTube. It was all YouTube. Oh wow, I've actually had the mic pressed up against the desk. Sorry if there's been a slight buzzing in the background, my bad. And all YouTube. No, not our fault, not our fault. They lost, obviously, and in the end, YouTube just decided, enough with this. Enough with the ability for large networks like RPM and Fullscreen and all them, broadband TV, to harbor this problem. It's creating, you know, lawsuits and litigations. It's weighing everybody down. So YouTube decided to take action. And the action that they took was this change that's coming up, in fact. They've decided that all partnered networks are now to be split into 2 types. Alright? All people partnered through a network will either be considered an affiliate or a managed channel. Now, managed channels are the status quo, as it stands right now. Like, we can avoid the review system, we're okay, everything's fine. And we generally don't have too much of a problem with that. You know, but, you see, if we get a copyright strike against us, then our network eats it permanently. Up until now, you see, if a channel got a copyright strike, the network would just kick the channel and say, bye-bye, not our problem, we disown him, as was in the contracts. And this would remove the copyright strike against the network. Under the new system, managed channels that get copyright strikes will now, you know, even if the network kicks them, won't matter, the copyright strike stays on the network. And if a network gets too many copyright strikes, it risks being taken down by YouTube. Thus, you know, like I said, the original contract between networks and YouTube written out long ago was that networks were supposed to take a certain level of responsibility. And guess what? They didn't. And that's what I mean by borrowed time. It was YouTube and Google in general tend to be sleeping giants. It takes a lot to wake them up, and it often takes a really long time for them to wake up, but they do take action when they finally frickin' get around to it. And so after all these years, they have finally decided that, you know, it's time. It is time. So our borrowed time is up, and they've decided that for the betterment of us all, that we are going to be split into 2 groups. Now, I've talked about managed being status quo. What does that mean for affiliates, specifically? Affiliates do kind of get the old screwball tightened onto them, I will say this. They, despite being partnered with a network, and still... Did I friggin' always leave the Aztec in... I always forget to turn off the damn Aztecs. Of course I do. Alright, well... Anyway, where was I? Affiliates, yes. Affiliates get screwed. They still have to go through the review system, and they still have to give a percentage of their earnings to the network. Now, again, we have to ask the question, what does the network give to these affiliates? And the answer is absolutely nothing. There are sometimes occasional things. I know RPM will give their partners access to a music library, but they ask for 40% of your income. Like, that's ridiculous. That's a lot of income for, you know, access to a music library of stuff that they've bought the commercial rights for. Like, damn. I used to be partnered with them, I know. It is not worth it. Like, just, oof. The 60-40 contracts that they give out, I actually just left them. I didn't join another network. I actually stayed on the old monetization system and just said, screw it. No, networks are too much of a hassle. So a lot of the problem is these networks are now no longer offering anything. They're no longer bringing anything to the table to give to their partners. Shit. Yeah, that's all you got to say. The networks at this point are kind of doomed, kind of not doomed. The problem is a lot of networks are now handing out managed status very conservatively because, well, literally their business could get shut down overnight by some idiots. So, like, there are people as large as Angry Joe, who has, I believe, 1.5 million at this time subscribers, and he's getting handed affiliate status. It's basically saying the network does not trust you enough to not upload copyrighted content. That we can, you know, trust you and rely on you. And, like, Angry Joe is pretty big, so he's earning his network a fair chunk of cash. Like, you think you could have a bit of a business trust with each other. Anyway, so that's pretty much what the change is. And some people are blowing this out of proportion right now. They're calling it the end of gaming channels, the gaming channel apocalypse, the purging of us all. Because the networks are in no way going to hand out, you know, managed status. So all the mid-ranged gaming channels are just going to collapse, poof, overnight. No. That is not what's going to happen. You know what I'm going to say will happen? What I'm going to say will happen is we will see a lot less copyrighted content on YouTube. And us gaming channels do get the shaft slightly. Those of us who are stuck at affiliate status, we just have to file out paperwork for every frickin' video we upload. The only people who I can say are getting royally screwed here are reviewers. Because if it takes, you know, like, Let's Players can, you know, backlog a week. Like, we can just backlog a week of content or whatever for the review system. And just be like, yeah, whatever, we can still keep to our schedule, we'll just have to, we just have a, you know, more or less a week between what we've actually recorded and what we're actually putting out. Whereas reviewers kind of rely on day one traffic. I mean, when COD 17 comes out, you know, like, how many people are looking for reviews on day 1 versus day 7? Right? Think about that for a moment. Yeah. So, reviewers who want to put their, you know, play a couple hours of the game, put their review up on the you know, the launch day, you're going to be faced with a tough choice. They can either not get revenue for most of the views of the video, or they can just miss out on getting a whole lot of views for the video if they wait for the review process to complete. This is, you know, kind of a problem. This is not good for reviewers, I will say that much. Reviewers are the ones here who are going to get the shaft. Let's Players, we just have to start filing paperwork. I mean, there are far worse fates than having to file paperwork. Heaven forbid I should have to file 4 forms a day for my videos. Admittedly, it's really frickin' annoying, and you'd think that they could bloody well save what I attached to the damn form saying I have the rights for this game, but, well, that would be asking a lot of YouTube, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that's the general gist of it. And like I said, a lot of this has been getting blown out of proportion. And there have been a lot of videos from fairly large YouTubers talking about this, and I always try and, you know, come in here with an unbiased opinion and just try and, you know, set the table straight. Like I said, anyone who's really thought about it and thought about where networks came from and actually, you know, bothered to do a little snooping, would know that, well, we've been on board time with this whole thing. It really is, and always has been only a matter of time before something like this would occur. And there's just no way around it. So, the fact of the matter is, the sleeping giant has been awoken. Now, on Monday, December... Oh yeah, I should also say, these changes go into effect Monday, January 6th. Now, on Monday, December 9th, YouTube did what was effectively a rescan. A lot of companies had updated their stuff for Content ID. But the problem was stuff that was already uploaded wasn't getting scanned for Content ID. You know? Like, oh well, so whatever. So they just decided to rescan all the videos. You know, every video on YouTube, which is impressive. I give them that. They took, I think they might still be scanning it at the time of this recording, and this is recorded on the 11th. So, they might still very well be scanning, for all I know. But some people have gone completely bonkers saying this is, you know, the rules are changing and everything's going to shit, when the reality is it isn't. So yeah, that's just great. That is just great. That is great. All right. So that's the general gist of it. But so my general thing about this is it's not really YouTube's fault. This is really the network's harboring scum and ruining it for us all. Specifically, full screen and RPM. Those two are the big offenders, and really were the ones who screwed it for the rest of us. We all had a nice thing going, but RPM and, you know, full screen really apparently could not, you know, live off of the profits of legitimate business, and decided, whatever. All right. So, last few things is that a bunch of companies have recently changed, you know, their policies. Everything from Activision, Microsoft, Bungie, I'm trying to think of some others. Nintendo did recently, that was a big one, that people were aware of. And, well, you know, Sega's just always been a jerk, and so there's a lot of companies that have recently been, you know, changing their policies, and this is actually because YouTube is approaching them about it, and they want a definitive answer on the policies, so that way they can, you know, they can say if a game is published by a certain publisher that it falls under a general hat of whether or not it needs to be scanned or not. Initially, it'll just be like, this footage belongs to this game. Oh, no, doesn't need a Content ID yet. And so on, and etc. The initial scan will, you know, help it out rather than and then when it gets put into review, in fact, it won't even need to be put into review. It's like, this publisher allows monetization. All right, doesn't need to be reviewed. And that was the initial idea. But then every publisher and their grandmothers said no. Yeah. So, it was good intention, at least. It was good intention. But sadly, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as it were. So this isn't necessarily like a copyright war. This isn't necessarily the end of gaming channels. Like I said, at worst, it's going to involve some paperwork for some people, and I'm one who doesn't like paperwork. So, but I'll bite the bullet and do it. Whatever. And so that's about it, I think. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I would like to thank everybody for watching and listening to my Let's Talk. Like I said, this has been, you know, this isn't the end of the world, and please, please, please don't go frickin' nutso over this. Do not be mad at YouTube. Do not be mad at anyone. There are two things that need to change if we want this kind of policy reversed. One, copyright law. In the United States of America, it's atrocious. It needs to be friggin' completely reworked. Like, how much reworked? Probably to the point where, you know, if you make a derivative work, you owe the original creator a portion of any revenue generated, for example. And you know what? That can apply to patents, too. Like the entire system just needs to be reformed into something that's far more manageable. I mean, a lot of people are just like, you support patents? Yes, I do. They make sense. Their implementation is shit, but they make sense. I mean, like I said, imagine, like, for the pharmaceutical industry, especially, for things like this, imagine, you know, if instead of having a sole right to produce something, You know, this is actually done in the pharmaceutical industry, where they then just jack up the price to, you know, 20 times what it should be. And, you know, a $50 medication suddenly costs $2,000. Because, you know, they have a monopoly. No one else can produce it. They have the patent. Whereas, say, if we change the patent system and the copyright system to make, you know, if you are infringing on somebody's patent, you just have to pay them 20% of your revenue. Then all of a sudden, you know, there's competition. Like, it would be good capitalism to do something like that, whilst still giving the reason for people to do research and development. In fact, more so, we could see entire companies rise off the idea of research and development. There are alternatives to the current patent system. The problem is, no one wants the current patent system reformed because it creates very wealthy companies and monopolies. And we are on the tail end of that. We are the ones getting shafted by it, more than anything. And YouTube is, as I said, playing by the rules and obeying the law. I don't want YouTube running around breaking the law. That's not a good thing. That is bad. I am fine with them, even if they're being draconian and fascistic about it. At least, like, at least they do have the cover. We're just following the law, which is true. Be mad at the law, is what I'm saying. Don't be mad at YouTube. This also isn't the apocalypse of gaming channels. I just figured I'd come on and clear all this up. So thank you everybody for watching. As always, this has been your lovely, lovely host, Galvin, signing off.